For the story, it's probably a good idea to check the previous game, A Plague Tale: Innocence, before venturing forward with this one. However, the game does treat newcomers okayish, and although there isn't a recap, you're able to get the idea what's what as you go on. Here again, we take control of the big sister Amicia de Rune, guiding his cursed little brother, Hugo, in search for a cure in a world of beauty and brutality. Rats, being the major catalysts for the Black Death, are elevated here in the direct tools for the evil that vexes the world of the main characters. We veer off from the perhaps atypical demonic presence into something else entirely, and in this regard, the theme for the horror in the game feels alien and novel. The adventure unfolds with a great deal of rumble and tumult, and almost never degenerates into being a scarefest of silence followed by loud bangs. From early on, the brutality of the world slaps the player hard. You will see people and animals all around you, with their guts hanging out, limbs twisted horribly as they're piled up into mountains of corpses. The sheer quantity of violence, death and decay in the streets is appropriate, as the plagues of the past haven't exactly been tidy. Even without the supernatural evils of the game, the world in the 14th century is rough for children. The mental toll of the horrors isn't really properly addressed, but if it would be, the game would last around 15 minutes before the main characters would fall into incapacitated state of torpor from all the anguish, stress and bloody murder around them. While the story does take a long while to get going, it's an interesting one, and one that leads the main characters into a quest like a treasure hunt of Tomb Raider-esque proportions. The characters are handled well, and especially in the cutscenes, the frailty of humanity is displayed in an interesting manner. A good journey is never a straight line. Here we're catered a few surprises, as well as things that you can see coming a million miles away. Still, the magnitude of the events in the story can be unpredictable and absolutely huge, resonating with stuff like the upheaval from Final Fantasy VI. It is a linear experience, and while some bigger puzzles are enough to make you stop on your tracks for a minute, mostly the discovery here is all about peeking at things at odd angles, which routinely lead to materials for crafting. You won't be scratching your head with this one. Navigating the sea of rodents or hiding from your enemies calls for patience. Apart from the few instances, nothing is actively pursuing you, and you can pretty much pick your own pace. The game does try to keep you moving, with comments from your comrades as you're lurching your way through enemy camps or blockades, and that in itself can become quite annoying, as your real enemy in the game is the stealth gameplay itself, but more about that in a bit. Even if the main characters do seem to exist a step apart from all the horror and the occasional beauty around them, the world conjured is an impressive one. From ominous tunnels to busy festivities in big cities, the atmosphere simply delivers. However, it is a marvel that doesn't stand a closer look, a visual feast that is best perceived with a quick pace, otherwise you're grasping air. Apart from the occasional bugs, you're basically always going forward. Some segments might take a few tries, but each time you're shoved into the moment without delay. So you can forget anything even resembling the long hikes you have to take in Dark Souls to have a go at a boss. Beyond few bigger bouts, the story keeps you from traditional mayhem. The main characters are children after all. You're sneaking, climbing, and squeezing your way forward in the world, with the occasional quick-time-like sequences where you're literally running away from the rolling boulder like Indiana Jones in his prime. This is a tough one, because on the other hand, the audio is pretty good, from the sound effects to the music that wraps around every scene. The soundtrack has character, but doesn't exactly come alive beyond the traditional means to heighten any given moment in the game. Also, there have been quite a number of occasions where I simply haven't heard a guard in full plate mail armor march up to me from behind, and I played the game with earphones on. It is more than a little problematic, as the style of gameplay is indeed stealth, and that is all about you making observations and decisions based on your surroundings. The world is absolutely beautifully realized, and just when you think you've seen it all, the game shoves the next big thing in your face. Even the dankest tunnels and sewers look equally interesting as the lushest forests, the grandest horizons you see from building tops. It's not just a game engine, it takes talent and more than one good eye to whip and craft these vistas we presented. The only thing that kinda stuck out was the animations of the characters, which looked oddly clunky. Keeping things somewhat realistic, a teenager waving a sword against rugged armored men wasn't really an option. Stealth, however, seldom feels natural in games. Having to hide from things while having a limited way of understanding your surroundings, and specifically the dangers therein, presents some challenges. Even with all the gear topped up, the game makes you the underdog by throwing non-stop stealth into your face. There is a mechanism for the madness, and while navigating these parts become routine, they never become satisfying or actually fun to play. Requiem does give you more tools and ways to navigate the flood of rats and get rid of enemies as the game goes on. However, the thing is, unless you really love squatting in the shadows, whirling your camera in circles to see what's what, there essentially isn't much here. And what it does have is repeated ad infinitum. For the RPG folks out there, the game doesn't have much. A simple mechanism of finding stuff and using them to upgrade your equipment feels more like an afterthought, added gamification if you will. New abilities also seem to come in way too late in the latter half of the game, when you might already be fed up with the gameplay loop. Requiem is a mixed bag. Its relentless stealth crawl is stirred with elements of guided action and light puzzles as you sail through corridors. Given the nature of their quest and how the duo go from point A to points B, C and all the way to Y, there isn't really that much discovery to be done on the way. Which is a pity, as playing the game simply doesn't at all compare to other aspects of it. One could also say something about how every insight after a trek leads to the good old meme of "Sorry Mario, but the princess is in another castle." This waiting to go forward becomes tiresome without any real gratification. So it's wise to avoid hours-long marathon sessions of play. Requiem is a story-heavy game that paints a beautiful but also rather gnarly picture of what life might have been for children, especially during the times of strife and the plagues, with a supernatural twist. As most good stories go, after they're done, you do feel, if ever so slightly, empty and thinking about what you witnessed. So you can take from that what you will. On another regard, Requiem is a good game to play together, in that sense that you have someone who isn't that keen on gaming generally, and is okay to just watch the events unfold with a cup of popcorn at hand.